to our next speaker, who is Dr. Zloof. So in addition to being a frequent speaker at this masjid, he's actually giving a talk tomorrow morning at 5:30 a.m. He is also an internationally recognized scientist in the field of data visualization. He's pioneered database models that power Microsoft Office today, and he received his PhD in cardiology from UC Berkeley. So he's also an avid marathon runner and a stand-up comedian who's performed all around the country. So please give it up for Dr. Zloof.
Good evening. I'm really honored for this invitation. And one thing I didn't realize that there are so many young kids here because some of my jokes are a little bit for grown-ups, so you have to bear with me. So Ritu told you about my marathon. So most of my stuff is around running. So I started running when I was 70 years old. Now I'm 86, so it was like a long time ago. Okay. Now, so from the time I started running until now, I run maybe 45, 50 marathons and half marathons. 16 of them, I came second place. Yeah, in my age group of 2. Actually, just this year, I broke the record. I came first place in my age group of 1. So many people ask me in a 26 miles marathon, what is the most difficult miles? Because sometimes people have like a block, they can't run over 18 or whatever. To me, it's always the same. The worst miles in marathon is the first mile and the last 25. This actually I borrowed from my marriage. I'm married 52 years. 52 years. And the most miserable years in my marriage is the first year and the last 51. They asked me, didn't you have any good year in your marriage? I say, yes, 53 years ago. My wife is a very high maintenance woman, right? When she goes and she drives and she needs gas, and there's no attendance in the gasoline station, she calls AAA to pump her gas. And she always buys the designer clothes like Gucci, Versace, Calanoli, you know, all names that sometimes I think it's restaurants' name, but it's really designers. And she never buys on sale, because who wants to buy something at the end of the season, right? That doesn't make any sense to her. So, and she actually looks I'm 86, but she's younger than me, 10 years, but she looks like 30 years younger than me. So when we go to her parties, I always introduce her as my daughter. I said, please meet my daughter. And some men, younger men, come to me and they say, can we date your daughter? I said, go ahead if you can afford it. Go ahead if you can afford it. You know, when after many years, I realized, now I know this for sure, that the secret for a happy marriage is still a secret. You know, I'm 86, and there are lots of people at my age, friends of my age, dying in their sleep. So I told my wife, I said, if I die in my sleep, I want to be cremated. So she looks for what about cremations. If she found that they are charging by the weight of the body. Right? So she put me on a diet. I lost 25 pounds. So now I can run full marathon. I stopped running full marathon 10 years ago, but now I started again. A year ago, I started again full marathon in June. I did it twice. Okay, because again, I lost weight. I have no problem anymore with the knees and all of that stuff. Now, she is putting me on a stricter diet because they told her that if I die before the year 2025, 2 years from now, she gets 30% off. Now, as I go back to running, you know, 10 years ago, I had this guy running with me, and he was a little bit overweight. And he needed to lose some weight to qualify for Boston Marathon, because there you have to qualify for speed. So he wanted to lose some weight, but he didn't have enough incentive. Like he loses 5 pounds, he gains 6, goes back and forth. Finally, his wife found a fantastic solution. She bought a scale, and she said, every time you want to sleep with me, you have to be 1 pound less than the previous time. What an incentive, right? So he lost 30 pounds in the first month. And it was February. So I told my wife the story, and she said, well, that's a great idea. You wanted also to lose some weight so you can qualify. So she bought me a scale, and she did the same thing. Every time you have to be 1 pound less than the previous time. So it worked for me. I lost 5 pounds. But it took me 5 years. That's once a year. So I have another friend who had the same problem, but in reverse. And I told him it's not going to work. It's the person who is overweight was his wife. So he told her the same thing. He said, every time you want to sleep with me, you have to be 1 pound less than the previous time. So she gained 20 pounds in the first month. You know, I'm 86, and in the last 2 years, my doctor is trying to find out whether I have Alzheimer or dementia. So I said, what's the difference? He said, well, in dementia, sometimes you don't know where you are. In the Alzheimer, sometimes you don't know who you are. So I said, Doc, if I don't know who I am, do I give a damn shit where I am? You know, my wife is high maintenance. I had a friend, this was like many years ago, who was very cheap, and he was looking for a low maintenance woman. Finally, he found a very low maintenance woman. So when the gas went up in prices, they sold their car. So they started using public transportation. So he was walking, wanted to go home, and he saw the bus coming on the station, but he had run to the bus. In the meantime, the bus left the station, right, the stop. And then, so he decided to run to the next stop. So he goes running to the next stop, and again, he lost the bus, right? So he went like this, maybe 7 stops, and he got sweaty, and finally, he never got on the bus, and he got home. So his wife said, what happened to you? You look so sweaty, miserable. So he told her the story that he chased the bus, and and he never got on the bus. But he said, look at the bright side, right? We just saved $2 for the bus fare. She said, you stupid man, have you chased a taxi? We could have saved $30. So they were so cheap that he was in an apartment building and he was a super, so they don't have to pay rent. So he went up, it was like 10-story building. He went up to fix the antenna and he slipped and he started falling down. So when he fell down, he passed his window where his wife was. So he told her, he said, don't cook today, we're going to eat in the hospital. Now, so what happened is after that, they couldn't afford the rent, so they moved into a poor neighborhood. And in the poor neighborhood, so they rented in a poor neighborhood an apartment, and after a year, they couldn't take it anymore because of too much violence. So they had to vacate the apartment. So he called a pet store, and he said, I want to order 1,500 cockroaches. Says, 1,500 cockroaches? What do you need that for? They said, well, they told us in the lease that we have to vacate the apartment the same way we got it. Okay, now, there is a program, a computer that you can buy, that you enter your age, and it tells you how many years you still have to live. So I enter like 80, they say 25. You enter 90, they said 13, and so on. Finally, so I'm trying to play with it. So how about 100? Oh, 100, you have another 2.5 years. And then I said, what about 110? 110, you have 2 hours and 45 minutes. So I took an Uber, went to the best restaurant in town, and I ordered the entire menu. Why? Because I knew I'm going to die in the middle of the meal. And so which is true, it happened exactly, I died exactly how they predicted, in the middle of the meal, right? And I don't have to pay. What you see now is reincarnation. Okay, now, I'm going to end, there is this again, with this guy that he was cheap, right? They tried to matchmake him with somebody, but she was so high maintenance that he couldn't stand her. He really couldn't stand her, but she fell in love with him. So he told him one day, he said, you know, what's important, it doesn't matter what's important really, that we love one another. He said, yes, one. Now, sometimes, there are these expressions that people use. I took many of them, and I have like 20, 30, but I'm going only to tell you three of them, to make them more, I changed them a little bit to make them more realistic, right? For example, when they say, don't put off anything tomorrow that you can do today. So I say, don't put off anything tomorrow if you can put it off the day after tomorrow. By the way, this is part of my talk tomorrow, because I'm showing that this is in procrastination. Sometimes it's very important and very positive. Okay, procrastination as laziness. Okay, my motto is, one of the principles is, be lazy as much as you can, right? Anyway, And that's how I succeeded actually in my PhD and all the things that I created because of my laziness. Okay, I wanted always to create things that that doesn't require too much effort. Okay, and then another principle is minimum necessary. Try to do everything, every task, everything you do in a minimum necessary way. You know, I used to write article like 20 pages, and when I picked that concept, minimum necessary, I reduced it to 2 pages without losing any content. So if you have to weigh every word to see what's going on. Anyway, so the first one is, second one is, you know, they say he who laughs last laughs best, right? And I say, he who laughs last didn't get it. One more. Last one is when they say, if there is a will, there is a way, right? And I say, if there is a will, there are lots of relatives.